Tickets are on sale now for the 4th annual Shocktober in Irvington, presented by the Obsessive Viewer Podcast. Join the hosts of the Obsessive Viewer on October 6th, 2017 for a one-night event screening of short horror films, including the premiere screenings of the latest film in J.P. Leck's cross-medium Elsewhere World universe, the latest film from Snapshot Productions, and much more. Come celebrate the horror genre in the historic Irvington area and meet the filmmakers with live Q&As after each screening. You can also win DVDs and Blu-rays, movie-related party games, horror-themed Funko Pop figures, gift cards to Irvington businesses, and so much more. Tickets are on sale now at shocktoberinirvington.com. All proceeds go directly to the Irvington Historical Society, and we will be seeing you on the 6th of October.
It's the Indiana Geeking Podcast with special guest, podcaster Matt Hurt. Yay!
Corbomite, an alloy weapon and device. Space travelers take our advice. It's indestructible Corbomite. For more than 2 centuries, all destructive energies have been deflected successfully by indestructible and invincible Corbomite. Corbomite, defensive deterrent device. Hostile forces will think twice. It's indestructible Corbomite. Any energy discharge, even point blank, is absorbed, emitting unequal force by indestructible and invincible Corbomite. Corbomite.
Hello, my name is Leo Walsh, President and CEO of Corbomite Industries. Pioneered by acknowledged scientist Frank Corbin, Corbomite is for the first time ever being made available to consumers across the galaxy. Unlike other super alloys in use today, Corbomite is rust resistant, has a life expectancy of more than 50 light years per treatment, is lightweight, and has no unpleasant side effects with extended use. And of course, it's impervious to attack. But is Corbomite really that impressive, you ask? I like it so much, I bought the company.
Corbomite, Corbomite, an alloy weapon and device. Space explorers take our advice. It's incredible and invincible and impervious and indestructible Corbomite.
Now available in gunmetal blue, candy apple red, or classic starship gray. Somebody get me a Tranya.
All right, my friends, we're here for another episode of the Indiana Geeking Podcast. And this week, we have a special guest that's a fellow podcaster. So, my good sir, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and let us know what you do, why you are here on your own couch talking to me right now.
I'm here because I live here. And no, my name is Matt Hurt. I am a podcaster out of Indianapolis, of course. I have 3 podcasts now. It started as a blog called obsessiveviewer.com. And then I was writing quite a bit for the site. And then we started a podcast called the Obsessive Viewer Podcast, which is a weekly movie and TV podcast that discusses a specific topic, whether it's genre, trope, movie, or show each episode. And then that eventually became more of a focus than the writing. So essentially, for all intents and purposes, Obsessive Viewer is the Obsessive Viewer Podcast, which is at obsessiveviewer.com. And then I got bored and decided to make a couple more podcasts. So we have 3 podcasts presented by obsessiveviewer.com. There's the aforementioned Obsessive Viewer Podcast, and then there's Anthology, which is a podcast exploring science fiction anthology storytelling during television's first golden age, beginning with The Twilight Zone, which just means I'm going through The Twilight Zone as a first-time viewer. I'm 31 years old, and I'm going through The Twilight Zone episode by episode. Each episode, I pair it with a mostly tangentially related classic TV episode or movie from science fiction's heyday, or sometimes more recent, like an episode of X-Files, or I just recently reviewed Ex Machina. Then I also incorporate modern anthology science fiction shows like Black Mirror, Dimension 404, and Philip K. Dick's Electric Dreams in bonus episode review series. And that can be found at anthologypod.com. And then finally, we launched a third podcast called Tower Junkies, which is a podcast devoted to Stephen King and his magnum opus, the Dark Tower series, which that is at towerjunkiespod.com. Essentially, me and my co-host Tiny are massive fans of Stephen King and the Dark Tower, and we were very dismayed by the movie that came out in August, and we recorded about 5 hours worth of content specifically about that movie for Obsessive Viewer. And so I was just like, you know what? We've spent the last year and a half talking about the Dark Tower on the Obsessive Viewer nonstop. Let's just do what we were destined to do and make a Dark Tower podcast. So we did that. That's at towerjunkiespod.com. And Tony, you just recorded an episode reviewing the first book with me.
Yes,
so that was awesome.
We did. We'll be getting into more of that in just a little bit.
Right.
So we will be discussing that because as much as I try to keep these more interviews about you, this is going to be one part where I insert myself into the narrative.
All
because remember, I was part of you're going, am I an idiot? And I'm going, yes, you are.
Yeah.
But spoilers on probably 20, 30 minutes into this.
Right.
But, I mean, many of you might recognize Matt. I've written about him on the blog a few times. I've talked about coming and guesting on his show.
And frankly, it's kind of creepy. I'm kidding.
This is what it's like having fans. I'm in your home, Matt.
It is disturbing how much that is actually triggering me here a little bit. Like, not to get too deep, but yeah, yep.
No, I really enjoy the stuff you guys do. And I mean, your fellow local geeks and podcasters. And, you know, I had you and Tiny on last year to promote Shocktober in Irvington, which we're going to talk about a little bit tonight.
I'm so glad because I didn't even include that in my ramble about what I do.
Remember, I make notes.
Nice.
So I've
That's the difference between me and you. Yeah. By the way, you can find me on Twitter at Obsessive Viewer and at Tower Junkies Pod. Just throwing that out there.
He is going to probably have a longer list than I do of places to find him online in the blog posts attached to this episode.
Right.
But yeah, let's just go ahead and start from the top, though. I know you gave a brief rundown when you were talking about the different projects you have, but everything did start out with Obsessive Viewer, which I know, like you said, did start as a blog. And then I know you and Tiny and Mike started...
Mike.
Hey, at least I'm no longer convinced he just stepped out for cigarettes. Right. Okay? At least I know. No, now Mike is still around, and because this time last year when I was talking to you, the actual existence of Mike was kind of in question.
Right.
Because in the time period I had been listening to you, I keep hearing him referred to, but nothing would actually happen because Mike was either a new father or getting ready to become a new father.
He, at that time he was a new father who was also getting his master's degree.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah, he was gone. And now, just this is apropos of nothing or apropos of everything, but he actually just made the announcement that they're expecting their second child.
Oh, awesome.
Which is great because after he left, for context, he left he was our full-time co-host, and then he left the podcast when he was preparing to have a child and getting his master's degree. So it's great that he checks in every now and then. We have a little segment called Mike's Pine Tree Potpourri. Pine Tree Perfume.
Yeah.
Mike's Pine Tree Perfume, where he calls in with a movie review. The next step is
washing it off, kid.
Yep. He calls in, does a brief review, so that gets him into the podcast a little bit, somewhat infrequently. But it's great to know that now, after leaving the podcast full time, he's at least doing his part to literally increase our listenership by creating people. So I'm proud of him for that.
But the problem is they're all going to be listening on the same computer, so it doesn't actually increase your hit count.
they're their birthdays, I'll get them iPods preloaded with all of our podcasts.
But with you guys, you know, like I said, it started with the blog, and then you rolled into the podcast. How? I mean, I know how I did, but how do you roll from blog to podcast?
Okay, so in 2013, this is weird because I don't think I've ever actually like verbalized this, but I'm not a very big like social media person. I had my own Twitter account that was just my personal Twitter account. As part of the branding for Obsessive Viewer, I kind of regret not having that Twitter account anymore because it was the perfect Twitter handle for me. My name's Matt Hertz, so my Twitter handle was my Matt Hertz. But so I had watched the movie Flight with Denzel Washington. I believe, was that Robert Zemeckis? I think so. Anyway, I'd watched that and I had like, it wasn't even like a very strong opinion about it. Like I've always been the guy who's like, oh, like what movies are good that are out now? Like what are you watching? What have you watched lately? Like I've always been the type of person that people come to for movie opinions. And so I saw Flight and I had just some like kind of thoughts on it, and I was like, you know what? I could write out a little review and throw it on a website and be fine. Like I could do this pretty regularly because, for context, I was a security guard at the time, so I had nothing but downtime. And so for the first year, or for about the first 9 months of the website being active, I mean, I was writing, just posting reviews, news pieces, somewhat. Like I had like different types of posts. I had like a series of adaptations and remakes. I had Trailer Tuesdays. I was just flying it out there, and it was a nice like creative outlet and everything. And then one night, Tiny and I were out drinking with a friend of ours, Greg, who is a co-host on We Are Libertarians. And this is when they were first starting their podcast. And then he was like, hey, you know, you guys should start a podcast because, you know, people would love to hear you guys just talk about movies. Because that's all me and Tiny did. Me and Tiny worked together third shift security guards, and we would just spend our shift just BSing back and forth about movies. So we kind of rolled with that. And then in June of 2013, we recorded our first episode of the podcast with Greg. And we kind of it just snowballed from there. Like it was something that it wasn't a conscious choice on our part. We weren't like, oh, let's do this and this is how we're going to do it. I was just like, we could see how it is because we both like listening to podcasts, and I wasn't annoyed by the sound of my voice. So I was like, we could do this. And then I Matt Herted it and went way too in detail about how we could structure it and everything. And then thankfully Tiny didn't freak out and leave. Mike did, but that's fine.
Hey, Mike was bettering himself while you're still sitting here on your couch.
Right. I do have a cat now, so I've bettered my life too.
Yes.
The official mascot of the Obsessive Viewer Podcast, Pizza Roll, shout out.
Pizza Roll is almost as adorable as a geek cat.
She is the most adorable cat in the world.
She is the most adorable cat in this apartment
building.
Okay,
complex.
I will give you the most adorable
property
cat in the Speedway area.
Okay.
So.
Sure. All right. That's fair. This is your show, so sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
you will respect the geek cat. Moving on. So you started Obsessive Viewer in 2013.
Yes.
And then I know sometime after that, you got the burr up your butt to do another podcast, the Anthology Podcast.
Oh, yes.
Which is a different beast. You're still talking media, but this is a solo gig.
Yes. So
how did that start up?
Okay, so I was working security. I was a security guard. Let's see, how did that start? At that time, I think I was working first shift. So I moved from third shift to first shift, which brought about so much less responsibility on my shift. Like I went from essentially sitting in an empty building, walking around the building a couple times a night and opening doors and everything, to sitting at a desk during business hours, telling people good morning when they came in and telling them good night when they left. So I had a lot of downtime. So all I kept thinking was like, well, you know, I really like recording with Mike and Tiny. I really like doing our Obsessive Viewer thing, but I kind of feel like I wouldn't say necessarily that I felt like we shot ourselves in the foot by being a broad podcast, but I'm someone who kind of likes the challenge of structure and having like something that is more niche and everything. And let's face it, movie and TV podcasts, those are a dime a dozen. Those people, like, that is one of the most oversaturated, like that and comedy podcasts are the two most oversaturated comedy genre or podcast genres. So I kind of felt
being a generic geek podcast. Moving on.
But you are also one of the best social media presence, or what's the title of it again?
It's second best local Twitter feed.
Well, second best in years past. Jury's still out on this year.
Yeah, we'll see. But but the people that beat me for the last 2 years are both in this year's ballot. So
Sure.
We'll see.
All right. Anyway, so I kind of felt like on one hand, it was like I would love the challenge of doing like a more niche podcast that's very specific to a very specific topic and structure. Mm-hmm. And then on the other hand, shamelessly, I was like, I kind of want to get more people to listen to Obsessive Viewer. So I created Anthology as a means to, on one hand, watch The Twilight Zone for the first time ever, because I'm a 31-year-old who didn't grow up with The Twilight Zone. I didn't grow up watching reruns of it. And it's this icon of television history. It's one of the most well-respected, one of the greatest television series in the history of the medium. And it was a blind spot for me, an obsessive viewer. So I created the podcast with the express purpose of going through it as a first-time viewer, lending my thoughts as someone experiencing it for the first time. Learned very quickly that with a podcast that is very much focused on a very specific topic and history and everything, maybe make sure that your spell check doesn't misspell the name of the creator of the show.
That's a sterling example of what you should not do.
I need to censor myself.
I just pulled a U.
Well done. But no, it was a very interesting challenge, and I specifically created the structure of it so that I could include a clip of the Obsessive Viewer in every episode because I am shameless in that way. But it has grown into something that is so much more fulfilling to me than I thought it was going to be, because I started it by thinking that, okay, this is me filling in one of my gaps for television, but it's now becoming more of a way for me to chronicle me discovering not only one of the greatest shows of all time, but one of my favorite shows of all time, because I'm a season and 6 episodes into the Twilight Zone, and it is unbelievable how great that show is.
Yeah.
It is unbelievable. And every day I think I am so mad at myself that I kind of opened the podcast by mispronouncing a name so frequently because it was so disrespectful to something that is so iconic. But yeah, and it's kind of just snowballed from there. I've really enjoyed doing it. I wish that I could pump out episodes more frequently, but it's very much a research heavy podcast. Yeah. So it does take a lot of prep time, but when I record it and when I release it, I love it. It's of the 3 podcasts, it's the one that I get the most feedback on. It's honestly a peek behind the curtain. It's the most successful podcast of the Obsessive Viewer brand. It's just, I love it. It's amazing.
And you put a lot of research into that. Mm-hmm. You do a lot of prep work for each episode, because I know you started out doing 2 episodes.
Yeah.
2 Twilight Zone episodes per anthology episode. And then you switched over to 1 Twilight Zone episode and then another piece of media that is in some way related to that Twilight Zone episode. And the amount of work, you can tell that you put a lot of work, you put a lot of research, and you do take into account listener feedback to what you do. In fact, if you don't want to talk about it, that's cool. But I know you were telling me via text some feedback you got recently that really validates the amount of research.
Oh yeah,
and the amount of thought you put into. Do you want to go ahead and?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm very proud of that. No, I had a listener send me a message just saying like, "Hey, I really enjoy your show, and I'm old enough to have watched the Twilight Zone when I was a kid when it aired, and now I'm finding a lot of insight into new insight from the show because you're mentioning things that as a first time viewer, like a lot of the other podcasts that cover the Twilight Zone aren't covering or aren't as insightful. And he actually said that he is teaching a course this fall at a college in Illinois, and he's going to incorporate some of my commentary into his course and into his lectures. And obviously he's going to give me credit, which I'm always happy for more listeners. But I was just like, that is pretty incredible. That like, I was super flattered and excited by that. And yeah, it was great. Yeah.
Now I know you're doing the main focus of the podcast is the Twilight Zone, but you also do the bonus episodes for Black Mirror, Dimension 404, and the new Robert K. Dick anthology series that's
Philip
coming
K. Dick.
out. Philip, that's you see, you mispronounce names. I just completely butcher them.
Sure.
And I should know because everybody calls Harrison Ford's gun from Blade Runner the PKD.
Oh,
Philip K.
Well, there you go.
Dick. I should know this, but it's been a long day. But
that's an interesting mistake to make because Robert Heinlein and Philip K. Dick, I can see where you could get that jumbled.
But going back to the initial question, you do these bonus episodes. What made you decide to start throwing in bonus episodes with recent anthology as opposed to going Twilight Zone and then the like original Outer Limits and some of the other anthology shows and going to the more recent Twilight Zone and the most recent Outer Limits? And then we've already discussed how you are keeping the concept of a horror anthology in the back pocket. That might be 4 or 5, depending on other conversations in the Obsessive Viewer brand of podcasts.
Right.
But what made you decide not to go in a more chronological order, but instead stick with the Twilight Zone, but then do the bonus episodes of the new stuff?
A couple of factors went into thinking about that. On one hand, I just love Black Mirror. Like I remember watching the first 2 seasons of Black Mirror. Like I believe it's the second episode of the first season, 15 Million Merits of Black Mirror. Like the first time I saw that was like, I don't remember if I mentioned this last year when I was on the show, but like that episode, when I the first time I watched it a few years ago, I had just gone through a breakup, like it was still really fresh, and it was a fairly amicable breakup, but like it was also like it sucked. And like watching that episode, it was just like I was in like that episode, and then there's another episode in season 2 that is like, it is so like I was so emotionally hooked by those episodes that like, I mean it was like, you talk about how you like, you don't watch like Game of Thrones and stuff because you don't want to like it to affect your mood and stuff. Like Black Mirror, like that had such a profound impact on like my mood and how I like viewed the world for the next like 36 hours. And it's an emotional reaction that it's so few and far between with me because I watch a lot of stuff. And so like that, and then I decided to have this platform to review anthology science fiction shows, starting with the Twilight Zone. And like the whole idea of anthology is that eventually I'm going to run out of Twilight Zone episodes. But hey, that era is ripe with anthology series. Yeah. So, I mean, next up would be Outer Limits. And then there are other like smaller shows or shows that don't have that much of a spotlight on them, like One Step Beyond. There like other shows that I've done as bonus reviews and everything.
Like what was the other one you mentioned? Was it Next Step Beyond? Or?
Yeah. I didn't even know. Like, I did all this research on sci-fi anthology shows. One Step Beyond was one that was in Science Fiction Theater is another one too.
Yeah.
But One Step Beyond was one that was kind of a contemporary of Twilight Zone, but not as popular. I think I might be confusing different shows, but I think One Step Beyond took stories like the stories were based on like I'm sure loosely based on like articles of like not necessarily paranormal, but like articles of unexplained things like in real life,
urban legends sort of
yeah. But yeah, so and then I found out like recently that there was a revival of that show in the 70s called Next Step Beyond that I had no knowledge of. So I'm finding all of these shows, but the tragedy of the show of Anthology is that I'm going through the Twilight Zone first, and then the Outer Limits, and then I'll get to the other ones. I'll die before I finish all of them. But meanwhile, I have Black Mirror, and we're going through this sort of renaissance of modern science fiction anthology shows. We have Black Mirror, Dimension 404 on Hulu, Philip K. Dick's Electric Dreams, and then I thought that there was one other one that's coming out, but I'm blanking on it. But
I think I've seen you reference it, but I can't remember.
Yeah, I have my list here. But anyway, on one hand, I'm selfish and I love Black Mirror so much, and Netflix picked it up they picked it up from one of the British channels. Anyway, they picked it up, they bought it, and then they essentially were like, okay, we're going to give Black Mirror 12 episodes spread over 2 seasons, and then they'll probably renew it after that. But I'm like, they just doubled the entire count of Black Mirror episodes that exist right now. I am just amazed. So I wanted an outlet to kind of talk about Black Mirror because I love the show so much. The other side of that is, again, I am a shamelessly aggressive person who wants more listeners. So I'm like, hey, let's review the more SEO friendly sci-fi shows.
You have to strike while the iron is hot.
Exactly.
You need to get some of the more that's still in the public eye. Mm-hmm. And as much as you want to do those little niche shows, you still have to, it's like you direct the big budget Hollywood blockbuster so you can make that small independent film. It's that sort of thing you have to do. And the thing is, you still give them the same attention that you give things like the Twilight Zone episodes. Right.
And it's funny because you say that I want to keep my the pulse on the kind of the cultural zeitgeist and everything. Then again, that output has been kind of flagging a little bit or whatever. So Dimension 404 premiered in April. I have 1 episode left of a 6-episode season, so it's taken some time, but yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's fun.
So one more question about Anthology before we move on.
Yes.
Are you planning on doing anything with the theme park attractions? I know it's going to be very difficult to do anything with the Outer Limits because that went away when Paramount lost control of the Kings Island Park.
Oh, that's right.
They had the Outer Limits Flight of Fear, which actually had specific footage shot for the attraction. And then you have the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror,
which is now
it's still in Florida.
Okay.
You can still see it in Florida. It's the California one that's no longer there.
Okay, because the California one's being changed into Guardians of the Galaxy.
It's already had the pretty much they pulled all the Twilight Zone stuff out, threw a bunch of Marvel Comics stuff in, and it's the same dang thing. Just instead of ghosts, you have an escaped monster in the collector's collection.
Wow. To answer your question, I am severely acrophobic. So I don't do the whole roller coaster thing or anything. I did. When I was in junior high, I did ride the Outer Limits. The only reason I did that, because I faced my fear and I rode the Beast and some of the other wooden coasters that didn't have a loop because I was terrified of going upside down. But I made an exception with The Outer Limits because it's all dark and pitch black and you can't see anything anyway. And so much
whiplash.
So much.
That was not a smooth track.
Yes. In the pain in my gut after that, I was like, oh God, I don't think roller coasters are for me. So to answer your question, no, I'm not gonna do that. I'm perfectly okay with giving my not too clinical analysis of each show.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm trying to dance around the words I want to actually use because I know that you're,
Yes, I am family friendly,
right.
Unlike your podcast, which
we
don't worry about editing.
Yeah. For the
anymore.
first 150 or so episodes of The Obsessive Viewer, we did bleep every obscenity and every curse. And then eventually I was like, this is so much more work than I want to put into editing. So no, we're just going to drop it. It's not like it's offending anyone, but yeah. But yeah.
I've got a brand to worry about.
I am.
Which I don't worry about when I'm on your show.
Sure. I'm totally okay with tarnishing my brand, whatever brand I have.
So, but now you've been doing Obsessive Viewer since 2013.
Mm-hmm.
You've been doing Anthology since 15? Was it 15 or 16?
I think it was 2015. Let me check. Well, okay. So the reason why I can't remember,
you had like a 6-month hiatus.
It was 7 months.
7 months. Okay.
Behind the scenes of that, August 2015 is when I launched it. Released 5 episodes. Got an excruciatingly negative review because I mispronounced Serling's name. Just scathing. And that kind of took the wind out of my sails a little bit. And then I just kind of took some time off and was like, you know what? 7 months later, it ended in September and then started back up in May. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to reformat the podcast, do bonus reviews, just go at it and, just do it like I wanted to. And it worked like gangbusters. It was perfect.
I can't believe someone on the internet was a jerk.
It's funny because that reviewer actually I've become Facebook friends with him. He's actually a pretty cool guy. He has his own Twilight Zone podcast, and he had a blog and podcast devoted to the Twilight Zone and Rod Serling. So obviously I very much offended him. Yeah. But yeah, he knows more about the Twilight Zone than I'll ever know. But yeah, so it's nice to kind of have that bury the hatchet and yeah, I posted on Facebook that I was interviewing for a job and he comments and it's hey, good luck, and I'm like, oh hey, yeah, cool, that's really nice of you. But yeah, but anyway, yeah, so it was 2015 and then the relaunch was 2016.
Okay. Yeah. So, and then this year, 2017, as you said, after all the buildup and the eventual disappointment of the Dark Tower film.
I like to use the word tragedy.
The tragic expletive deleted show that was the Dark Tower. Mm-hmm. Which, if you follow me, you've seen me write about a Media Monday, and I've told you to come listen to his podcasts on it. Mm-hmm. You and Tiny decided to go ahead, pull the trigger, suck away any extra spare time you might have had to do the Tower Junkies podcast.
Yes.
And I remember doing some text messaging with you when you're essentially going, Tony, am I an idiot? And I'm going, yes, you are. But you're my friend and I support you in your idiocy. So how's that experience been? Okay.
It's been really fulfilling in a very interesting way. So Tower Junkies, as I said at the top of this episode, is that Tower Junkies is a podcast about Stephen King and the Dark Tower series, which, if you have no frame of reference, the Dark Tower series is this kind of epic fantasy, science fiction, horror, Western amalgam of different genres. It's a seven novel plus one kind of standalone novel plus a whole bunch of comics. it's this vast world that Stephen King created. He refers to it as his magnum opus. It falls into, like, so much of his work falls into in line with the Dark Tower. It's referenced in so many, like right now the kind of big thing is extended universes and Marvel, DC, all that. That's all well and good. Stephen King kind of did that first in a different medium. So he had books that interconnected with each other, had references to other events and other books. It was all very, very fascinating. And all of those led to the Dark Tower. All of those kind of came together into the Dark Tower series. And Tiny and I have been such huge fans of this book series for nearly a decade of our lives. I referenced that we worked nights as security guards. That's when we read the book series. We read it together. We would spend our entire shifts talking about the Dark Tower, fantasy, casting. I would like draw little stick figures and say, oh, these are the characters, because I can't draw for but like the Dark Tower and Stephen King just possessed our thoughts. And so it kind of seemed like an obvious thing for us to start a Stephen King / Dark Tower podcast, because and I think it fills a void that I had in podcasting, because we started Obsessive Viewer. It's this broad, just general movie and TV discussion podcast. And then I started Anthology to fill that kind of niche, more structured thing. But Anthology is all about me discovering and researching and watching the show for the first time and giving my thoughts on it. Tower Junkies is a focused podcast about a specific topic and subject, being Stephen King and the Dark Tower series, that Tiny and I have already spent a third of our lives talking to death and thinking about constantly. So it kind of fills that third void in podcasting for me. And it kind of feels like there are so many different things that I'll speak for Tiny also. Like, we have different fandoms. Everyone has like you're a Trekkie or Trekker, or you're a Star Trek geek. Like, you have your different fandoms and everything. Stephen King and the Dark Tower, that's mine and Tiny's favorite thing. And like, if we hadn't started the Obsessive Viewer kind of on a whim, and we like sat down and we thought, okay, let's make a podcast, and we wanted to like make a podcast, we weren't just kind of thrown into it, I would wager to bet that we would have started either a Stephen King / Dark Tower podcast or a Lost podcast, because those are the things we love.
I remember you saying, actually, during one of our conversations, that you sometimes almost regret starting with the Obsessive Viewer. That you almost sometimes wish you had started with something like Tower Junkies. But you're also glad you started with Obsessive Viewer, because you're not sure if something like Tower Junkies would have lasted or even been able to get off the ground without that sort of base.
Now, this kind of feels like a little bit like gotcha journalism. It kind of feels like you're leading me into talking negatively about my brand, but I'm just kidding. Anyway,
I was just say that's not the goal. If you want me to, I can cut that out.
No. I'm not going to cut that out. I'm totally joking. No, and yeah, that is...
No, I'm totally joking. That was told to you in confidence and private.
I never said that I wished I never started my podcast. What are you talking about? How much is it going to cost you to cut that out?
Let me go back in the text conversation.
No, that's not necessary. It was a type. It was autocorrect. I love the Obsessive Viewer. No, but you're right. Like, that is kind of what I was thinking when I was kind of really starting the Tower Junkies thing and really considering it more seriously, is that, yes, I do kind of wish we had that, because we have that fandom. We have that core. And it's less broad as just general movies and TV. Yeah. But like you said, and like I said to you, it would not have sustained itself, because when we started the Obsessive Viewer, we had no idea. Like it was very possible that it would have just been a one and done thing, that we were never going to record another episode. We had no idea how it would sustain itself, or if we were going to do this every single week, or how long we would let it go. And I think having a broad, just general movie and TV discussion podcast really allowed us to really dive into the hobby of podcasting in a way that a more structured thing would not have been sustainable. Because when you have like perfect example is Anthology. Like if I had a co-host, if Tiny and I had started Anthology instead of Obsessive Viewer, and we decided to go through the Twilight Zone and review it each week, like there are certain episodes of the Obsessive Viewer where Tiny and I are, to be honest, we're just like, okay, well, we don't have a topic for this week. Let's just do an extended potpourri. Let's do a fake movie game episode. Let's just talk about this specific topic that we haven't talked about yet, and just kind of go off of movies and shows related to the topic that we're familiar with. But if we were to do like Anthology or another show like that, it would be like, okay, well, crap, we're not really feeling it this week. We got to put an episode up. Hey, we're up to Eye of the Beholder. We need to really focus on this episode, and we need to really research it. And like that would have just taken the drive away. But fortunately, we started the Obsessive Viewer, so now when I have moments like that for Anthology, I can just take a few weeks off without announcing it. I need to get back on a consistent basis with that. But yeah, and that is true. Like if we had started a more niche podcast, maybe we wouldn't be podcasting today. So I'm glad that we did that we went that route without actually, if I could pat myself on the back with something I wasn't making a conscious decision of, I'm glad we did that without thinking about it.
And you know what? I completely feel you on not knowing what you're going to do for the subject. I've had those moments where it's like, I have no idea what I'm going to do with the podcast. Let's see, who am I going to go record with that already has recording equipment? Hey, Matt, do you want to be on the podcast?
Right.
And then later, this is going to go up a week before Shocktober in Irvington. So we can tie into that.
Nice.
Subtle segue. Moving on. So
Yes.
you also, and this is why you were on the podcast previously, why you are a returning guest.
Thank you.
Unfortunately,
I thought it would
Tiny's
be
not
my
here.
charm, but that's fine.
But that's why the timing. No, the charm is what keeps me coming back.
Good.
For your podcasts.
Nice.
I have now been on all of them except for Anthology.
True, which is kind of tricky for a solo podcast.
Yeah,
but yeah,
you're gonna find room for Tiny on it. But anyway,
well, those are special. Maybe after season 2. We'll talk off air.
Nah, because I don't watch Anthology television. You also, one of the things you've been doing for the last few years is an event called Shocktober in Irvington.
Yes.
Which runs over in, Irvington, one of the small sections here in Indianapolis. And why don't you go ahead and let us know what Shocktober is?
Sure. So Shocktober in Irvington is a one-night event screening of short horror films from local filmmakers around the Indianapolis area. We essentially take short films from local filmmakers, screen them for an audience, and then after each screening, those short films usually run about 15 minutes or so, or 15 minutes or less. After each screening, we bring up the filmmakers for a quick interview and Q&A session with the audience. And then in between each screening, we raffle off prizes and gift cards to Irvington businesses. This is our 4th year doing it. Every year we donate the proceeds to the Irvington Historical Society, which, as Tony said, Irvington is a small little kind of hamlet on the east side of near east side of Indianapolis. It's kind of this little, not necessarily little kept secret or anything, but it's this little area that's very, very nice. It's a very great community. They do the Irvington Halloween Festival each year. They deck out all of their businesses' windows and everything with Halloween decorations and photo pictures and drawings and stuff. It's a really great community, and yeah. So we've been doing that each year for since the first year that Obsessive Viewer started. Because, I can go into the background on it too. I'll let you prompt me for it.
I was to say, in all honesty, if you really want to, you guys gave me a lot of the background last year. And I'll make sure that episode is linked in the notes for this episode.
Okay.
So,
nice.
People have a twofer there.
Sure.
But
if you want to hear all the details of our drunken nights of starting Shocktober in Irvington, listen to that episode. But yeah, and it's been growing steadily each year. With any event organizing, we've had hiccups along the way each year, but it's growing into this really great thing that we're doing, and we're happy to have a platform to showcase local talent and celebrate the horror genre with local filmmakers in the Irvington community, which is just such a great community that I can't speak more highly of. It's just a beautiful little area.
Now, you're talking about showcasing local creators. What can people look forward to this year at the 2017 Shocktober in Irvington? Absolutely.
So this is, by the way, this Shocktober in Irvington is on October 6th, 2017.
That was the next question.
Nice. 8 p.m. You can find more information at shocktobernervington.com.
And you still keep going.
Because I know you're going to prompt me so I can repeat it and so that people know. Like, I have twice the chance for people to go to the website. And anyway, so, one of the filmmakers that we have back each year all the time, this guy he's a force to be reckoned with. His name is J.P. Leck. He has this somewhat similar to like what we were talking about with Stephen King in the Dark Tower series. Yeah. He has this multimedium, he calls it the Elsewhere world universe. So each year he has radio play, short film, he has novels, short stories, all of this interconnected with the Elsewhere world universe. And every year we showcase we premiere the brand new short film each year. And it's his work ethic is unbelievable. And it's just it's exactly what Shocktober in Irvington is all about. It's this local guy who's creating these short films in the horror genre. And like last year's short film, he had, I think it was last year or the year before, he had a special effect where it was like lightning effects and water. And we had him on stage after the screening, and we're like, that looked like it was incredible, production value. And he's like, that was just a hose that was hitting a hose that was hitting the window with just a lamp from Walmart kind of bouncing back and forth. And I'm like, it's just amazing the creative the creativity that goes into it. And
didn't he have the sword fight last year?
He did.
That was last year, saying that you were.
Yes, that was very cool.
Yeah,
and
last year was the first year I had the opportunity to attend.
Right.
So.
Yep. And have you bought your tickets this year?
Yes.
Okay, I thought
we'll get into that more towards the end of this section. Okay.
So you went to shocktobernervington.com and bought tickets. Anyway.
And I didn't even use the geeking or podcast 1 or 2 promo codes.
Right. You tried to, but it didn't work. But it's working now. But no, anyway. So, I mean, he's great. We also have filmmakers that are making their first appearance at Shocktober in Irvington. We have a short film from, actually, he's the cinematographer on The Man Who Loved Flowers, the Stephen King short film that we referenced. Did we reference that in this recording?
We have not referenced that in this recording.
Okay, sorry.
How many podcast recordings have you done this week?
This week, I've done.
This is currently Thursday, the 21st or
21st. Yeah,
Thursday,
happy birthday,
the 21st.
Stephen King. I've done 3 podcast recordings this week. Went to one podcaster meetup, which was a lot of fun, and I've edited and released 1 episode, prepped 2 episodes for release, and on top of all of that, I work in a call center where I have to talk every single day on the phone for about 3 to 4 hours of talk time. So yeah, I'm definitely loving
The sound of your voice?
The sound of my voice, and I'm making sure that I am well stocked in tea, so I can soothe my aching throat. But anyway, Bobby Darko, he is he was the cinematographer on a local adaptation of a Stephen King short story called The Man Who Loved Flowers. It was one of Stephen King's Dollar Baby projects, which he basically licenses out the rights to a number of his short stories for just $1 for student filmmakers and amateur filmmakers who meet a certain criteria. So this guy Cameron Grimm from 5 After 5 Productions got the contract for the short story The Man Who Loved Flowers, and this is his first film that he's shooting. He shot it over the last couple weekends as of this recording, and I had the pleasure of meeting, visiting the set and interviewing the cast and crew, and I'll be interviewing him for Tower Junkies and Obsessive Viewer actually here in the coming weeks. But while I was at the set, I met this guy, Bobby Darko, who is the cinematographer on the project, and he turns out that he's a director and he has a psychological thriller that he's going to be submitting to. He's very, very intelligent guy who knows his stuff, and I'm really looking forward to that. We also have a couple of short films from Tyler Smith from Fair Creek Films, which is going to be. We have a couple short films from him and a trailer for an upcoming one, and we might have one or two more to show. But as of right now, that's what we got.
All right. Now, I know you said this podcast episode is going to be up on Friday, September 29th. Mm-hmm. And then just a week later is Shocktober on the 6th of October. Mm-hmm. So next week at 8 p.m., right?
Yes. I'm mentally time traveling with you. Okay. Yes, next Friday at 8 p.m.
All right. Now, is there anybody you want to give a shout out to for helping all this come together?
Oh, yes. Of course, everyone in Irvington and everything. And also the Black Hat Society. They are a group of witchcraft enthusiasts, essentially. And they are such a great group. They have... They're theatrical witches. They do like dance numbers and performances for the public and just for the support of the community. And you can find them at theblackhatsociety.org, and they are just phenomenal people, super friendly. They have a calendar that they release each year, and they're actually on the Friday after Shocktober in Irvington. They're going to have a calendar reveal party at the Irving. I'm sure you can put a link to it in the. Oh,
because I do have that event saved on my Facebook. So,
nice,
because that I love how that worked out for them. That it's Friday the 13th,
and I wish so much that I could go to it, but that's when Tiny's rehearsal dinner is.
Yes,
it pains me that I can't go to it, but they are just a lovely group of people that they helped us out a lot with this year's Shocktober in Irvington, and they are just the best. And they are so in tune with the spirit of Irvington and what Irvington kind of represents and what they're all about giving back to the community. And that's something that with Shocktober in Irvington, that's what that's all about, is giving back to Irvington and donating to the Irvington Historical Society and really highlighting this nice, great little community. And Black Hat Society is just really up at the top for that mission statement, essentially.
Now, you said tickets are available at shocktoberinirvington.com.
Yes, shocktoberinirvington.com, yes.
You did provide a special promo code for Geeking in Indiana.
I did.
That is, it's just you put in Geeking for $1 off your tickets.
Yes. Just now, for the listeners of this podcast, if you use Geeking, you get $1 off, guys.
Now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to probably tomorrow, and this is going to be us workshopping this whole thing live, or as live as a pre-recorded podcast can be. But it's the sort of thing we didn't set up beforehand. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and purchase a pair of tickets tomorrow.
Okay.
For it's going to be a pair of tickets I want to give away. Well, like I said, this episode will be up on the 29th. I'm figuring we'll go ahead, we'll run this contest through. It won't be that long. It'll be probably till about, what do you think? Wednesday or Thursday? 3rd or the 4th? Or 4th or the 5th?
I would say
Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, 4th or 5th.
Let's say Thursday, just to give him more of a chance.
Okay, so Thursday, October 5th. And I'm figuring, because I'm just using the free version of Rafflecopter and I'm already running a Kokomocon contest, I'm not sure I can put a second one.
Sure.
So we're just going to do comments.
Okay.
Comments on the blog post attached to this episode. And I've already looked ahead. The blog post is going to be at geekingindiana.com/IGP, like Indiana Geeking Podcast, -Y3E7.
Y3E7.
Year 3, Episode 7.
Oh, nice.
It was season, and then at the previous podcast indie meetup, Brandon from the Cult Cinema Cavalcade brought up a very good point going, if you're recording year round, stop calling them seasons or not. And I'm like, didn't think about that, but that's a real good point. So
It's a very good point.
So I stopped calling them seasons.
Obsessive Viewer launched on June 21st, 2013, which was the first day of summer. So, I mean, this is just in the metadata. I don't follow it like that, but I mean, like, I still do like season 4, like year 4, season 14, summer 2017 in the album for each episode.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think mine's just like year 1, year 2, year 3. In 2018 will be year 4. I just didn't put much thought into it because I didn't know how long I was going to be doing this.
Yeah.
So, and I think it's only been about 60 odd episodes, but, but anyway, that's, like I said, that's going to be, geekingindiana.com/IGP -, whatever you want to call it, Y3E7. What you need to do is you need to go to that blog post and leave a comment with, what do you say? Just favorite horror film?
Yeah. Absolutely. I was gonna say, how crazy or stupid do you think I am for having 3 podcasts and a live event each year? But no, yeah, favorite horror film is great.
No, because I like you, and therefore I'm not going to bring anything about you being a fool, you having too much time on your hands, you being the example of the meme forever alone. We're not going to do anything like that, even though I just did.
You did. And I was so prepared to say, like, oh, it's nice that you said that you like me after I subjected you to an hour and a half recording talking about the gunslinger.
Yes. But
and then you had to go and say all that. But yeah, I am very single if it's not evidenced by my 3 podcasts and my 3 podcasts, my 1 live event, and my 1 cat.
Yes. Yeah. But go ahead, leave a comment saying what your favorite horror film is, and you need to make sure your name is on there and there is a way for me to contact you. You might not want to go ahead and put like your email address right in the blog post, but at least make sure if I click on your name, I can find your email address. Don't panic if your comment doesn't immediately show up. Everything is set up where I have to approve first-time commenters on the blog. Okay. Helps keep everything nice and clean and happy and doesn't destroy my readers' happy, calm place. Sure. So don't panic if it doesn't immediately show up. I will be getting that approved, getting that on there. And then Spencer Sokol of Studio 27 Indie, who does all of my web work, and hopefully you will be remembering to reach out to. He has a plugin on the website called And the Winner Is. That if when I write this blog post, I will set it up as a contest. And then when the contest is over, it will choose a random winner.
Nice.
And I will get in contact with them, and there will be a pair of tickets. We can figure out how best to get the names at a like will call area, because normally it's just Eventbrite.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll get those a pair of tickets there for the winner.
That is a fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. And if you don't mind, could I entice your listeners to do the contest and everything by talking about some of the amazing prizes that we have?
That was actually going to be the next question, but
nice.
To kick it off, I would like to say, the book did show up today.
Nice.
If you listen to the previous episode of Indiana Geeking, you heard me talking with Bree and Ginger and Chris about their new book, Pitched. Bunch of ideas too awesome for Hollywood. We will have hopefully, I'm going to work on getting it signed between now and the show. One of his prizes will be a signed copy of this local movie book, Pitched. And what else is going to be available?
Well, of course we'll have Pitched, which as soon as I get it, I'm going to be thumbing through it too. I need to actually order it myself because I listened to that episode and man, first of all, they just seem like such cool people, like such down to earth.
They're great.
So great. And like just listening to that, I was like, I want this in my hands right now. Cause it's the perfect, like that's like I am the audience for that book so badly. But as far as other, other prizes we're going to be giving out, we actually have a really good year. So of course we're going to have, gift cards from local Irvington businesses like the Legend, Giacomo's, different shops around Irvington to help support local business and to get people to go to local restaurants and businesses and everything. And then, of course, we're also going to be raffling off a few pop vinyl figures. So we have, on behalf of Tower Junkies podcast, we have a pop figure of Carrie from Brian De Palma's film based on Stephen King's book of the same name. We also have the puppet from Saw, and also, and this isn't necessarily, this is one of those, like, one of these is not the same as the others, but we also have not Baby Groot, but like angsty teen Groot. And my rationalization is that it's so scary how cute he is. So we'll have a pop figure of that. And of course, we will also have a copy of By the Rights, the movie pitching party game, which is such a blast. Like, I'm so excited to give that away. And the creators of that, of course, we had on the Obsessive Viewer, and you guys you've had on your show, and they're just great people. And I'm super happy to give away one of their games. And
by the way, completely random. Do you know they're now neighbors?
Are they really? Yeah, I did see that. Yeah. That is so, that's so cute.
You know, two families that are really good friends. They got lucky and they were able to buy houses right next door to each other.
And that is so awesome. And they're such great people. I love them. But yeah, we'll have By the Rights, and then we'll also have a copy of Movie Buff, which
sounded really interesting when they were on their podcast.
Oh yeah. The guy that created it, Justin Purvis, I think he's from like New Jersey. I actually ran into him at Horror Hound a couple weekends ago as of this recording. And like, I mean, that guy, the energy that guy has is unreal. Like he's just always on, and he's just pushing that. But Movie Buff is this card game that's basically you use your knowledge of movies to play a game, kind of Uno style. So you have a few different types of cards. Like you can throw down a quote card, actor, characters, things like that, and you have to. Each round has to go in the same topic or the same movie. So like Black Hawk Down, quote, oh, we got a Black Hawk Down. Actor, really anyone on the planet, since everyone is in that movie. but yeah, so that's a lot of fun. We're going to be raffling off one of those. And then also on behalf of Tower Junkies, we have paperback editions of The Shining and the Dark Tower one, The Gunslinger, the movie tie-in edition, which I weirdly still want to own in my physical collection. And then also a copy of It, which of course is great. And we have that along with several other prizes and things to give away. And kind of the special underlying thing is that each pop figure, each book, everything comes with its very own Matt Hurt business card for all 3 of my podcasts, because I am shameless in that way.
Yes. By the way, I spoke to one of the employees at the Avon Half Price Books. You are banned from their store.
I don't care. Because someone's going to pick up a copy of the drawing of the 3. They're going to get halfway
They've
through
already
it.
cleared all those cards out.
Oh, not the ones that I hid. Not the ones that, the copies that I hid.
I told them where to look.
Oh.
I'm kidding. Dead serious. One of those employees is good. I'm starting a D&D campaign actually.
Oh, really?
From tomorrow, and one of the employees there is part of the gaming group. So, been a friend of mine for years.
Do they listen to this?
Nope.
Okay, good. Yeah. But yeah, you can also find my business cards at tucked into Stephen King books all around the city.
He's not kidding.
I'm not joking, and I did not think it through because it has my phone number on it. Oh,
and he worries about me rifling through his underwear drawer. Moving on. I keep kidding about that.
God.
He's actually going to start wondering soon. So, as we start winding down, I want to go back to the podcast for just a little bit.
Sure.
You have been doing this for the past 4 years. You've got well over 100 episodes of Obsessive Viewer under the belt. You got quite a few episodes of Anthology. You've already got 5 or 6 episodes of Tower Junkies.
6 episodes of Tower Junkies, 2 recorded, not edited, so totally 8 so far, with a whole list of episodes in the works. A little over 50 Anthology episodes, and like over 220 Obsessive Viewers.
Yeah. So, what tips would you have for someone that's looking to get into podcasting, especially someone that's thinking, I want to do a podcast, but I don't have anybody to do a podcast with me.
Oh, nice.
So I want to do this by myself. I know this is the sort of thing you do panels on at local conventions. So I'm not looking for the full panel, but do you just have any tips or recommendations for someone that might be interested in doing that?
Absolutely. So first of all, if you're in Indianapolis and you're interested in podcasting and learning about podcasts, join the Podcast Indie group. Because I actually just went to my first meetup with them, and it was a freaking blast. And I mean, everyone's just having a good time. It's not a very it's not like a serious thing, but if you have questions and stuff, it's a room full of people that are knowledgeable of everything about podcasting. So that would be my first suggestion, is to reach out to people you know that are podcasters and kind of learn. Like with Obsessive Viewer, like we learned how to podcast by our friend Greg, who was podcasting, and then after we were up and running, we were able to help out our friends Pat and Tyler start their podcast, The Nerds You're Looking For. And then Tiny started his solo or his side project podcast, The Secular Perspective, and then eventually kind of handed the reins over to our friend Chad and Amanda, and we give them tips on how to podcast. So one of the great things about podcasting in general is being able to, talk shop with other podcasters. And if you don't have a co-host, that's not necessarily a terrible thing. Like, you can have a solo podcast. What I would recommend doing is it's probably easier to podcast solo about something you're knowledgeable about. Because I kind of jumped into the deep end with Anthology. But I mean, if it's something that you're passionate about, or even in broad terms passionate about, like I'm passionate about movies and TV, so hey, I'm going to watch The Twilight Zone and discuss that with myself. And there's a lot of stigma about, or there's a misconception about solo podcasts. Like, people think like, oh, how can I hold a conversation with myself? Like, how is that possible? And I mean, it's fairly easy, as evidenced by these long stretches of me just talking and you politely waiting for me to shut up. But no, like,
Matt, this is how an interview works.
Anyway, so it's a lot easier than it sounds. Like, I think that one of the big misconceptions is that you have to script out everything you say. which is something that, and I mean, it may work for some people. It depends on what works for you. Every podcaster goes through a learning curve. Everyone learns the ins and outs. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone mispronounces the creator of a TV show that they're covering in their first episode, right?
Or says a completely wrong author's name on their 60-odd episode. So don't worry about it.
Yeah.
We're human. It happens.
But like, probably my best tip and everything for the people that think that they need to write out a script and then read it is that doesn't, for me, from my personal experience, like that feels more like a performance. And that's something that you can really fall into the trap of, you really fall into the trap of sounding very, very monotonous and disengaged from it. Evidenced by my really terrible reading of the opening of the second ever episode of the Obsessive Viewer, which has terrible audio quality. But I say like, this is Matt and Tiny, and today we're going to be talking about our controversial opinions. Very flat. And it was like, the wording was a lot lamer than that. But anyway, my point is, my best piece of advice for solo podcasting is to make bullet points and basically present those bullet points as pieces of conversations and kind of have a conversation with yourself, in no uncertain terms. Say like, well, this episode featured a, it's a terrible part to blank on. For instance, this actor, also played this character in another thing. In this one particular scene that he was in, he really played up the menacing nature of the character in a very significant way, and like kind of going through it as you're kind of thinking about it. It's something that you have to attune yourself to and learn how to handle. But that's my weird roundabout way of saying, hey, that's my piece of advice for that. And also probably the best piece of advice for starting it that I should have started with was, don't be afraid to record a pilot episode just for you. Record an episode, just get all the weirdness out, go through your notes, talk about how you want to talk about it, and try a few different ways, see what works for you, and then put that recording in a folder somewhere, and then record a new one, and that'll be your pilot episode. So those are all of my random, not connected thoughts on starting a solo podcast.
I would also like to thank you, talking about how the podcasters help each other out. Mm-hmm. If you did notice a noticeable improvement in the sound quality of the podcast starting last episode, that's because Matt helped me figure out a few things.
Oh, yeah.
Finally tracking down the mythical levelator piece of software that a lot of podcasters refer to, that for the longest time I thought was an actual plug-in to Audacity, which we use to edit. I have now been informed this is not the case, and that is helping immensely. So
nice.
Thank you for that.
Well, I'm very glad to impart my, like, I have my podcast editing down to a specific workflow that I've been podcasting for about almost 4.5 years now. Probably took me 2.5 years to hone that to where I wanted it to sound as passable as it can. So I'm glad that I can impart that on other podcasters.
But let's go ahead and wrap up, because I mean, we've been sitting here since 7:30. It is currently 10:30. I've got to be up at 5:30.
Oh, geez.
And I've still got about a 30-minute drive home from Speedway to just outside of Irvington.
Wow.
So let's go ahead. Let's start wrapping up. Matt, why don't you once again let us know where we can find you online? Not just you, but also Obsessive Viewer, Anthology, Tower Junkies, and one more plug for Shocktober.
Absolutely. So once again, but hey, thank you for having me on, and thank you for coming to my home and sitting with me and talking about the Dark Tower for an hour and a half, and then doing this recording. And thank you for having me. It's a blast always to talk to you and everything. You can find everything that I do at obsessiveviewer.com/podcasts. That is the centralized page for all my different podcasts. You can find Obsessive Viewer podcasts on any podcast app, iTunes, Google Play, anywhere podcasts are, we're there. You can go to obsessiveviewer.com for just the main podcast. You can go to anthologypod.com for anthology, and you can go to towerjunkieспod.com for Tower Junkies. And you can also follow me on Twitter at Obsessive Viewer, and follow Tower Junkies at Tower Junkies Pod. And then also like the Facebook pages, because I like getting that notification. At The Obsessive Viewer on Facebook, at Anthology Pod on Facebook, and at Tower Junkies Pod on Facebook. And then Shocktober in Irvington, also, I just, 4th year doing it, just started a Facebook page for it. No idea why I didn't. I just had, Anyway, you can find that at Shocktober in Irvington on Facebook. And, like the page, even if you can't make it, like the page, because we're going to be posting about it throughout the year, and we're going to be posting updates for next year and years to come on there. So that's at shocktoberinirvington.com. Tickets are on sale. Go to shocktoberinirvington.com for a link to the event page and for the ticket sales and everything, or just go to the Facebook page and find it there. And of course, listeners of Indiana Geeking get $1 off when they use the promo code Geeking. And I hope to see everyone there, and I'm so excited for it, and I'm so excited and happy and grateful to have this opportunity to annoy your listeners with my rambling about podcasting and Shocktober. Did I cover everything?
I think so.
Yeah. Also, vote. Is that going to be over by that time?
It'll be over October 2nd, which is just a few days after this. I'm going to be pushing the Nuvo stuff and on social media and the blog. I'm not worried about on this.
Gotcha. Okay. So. Well, join the Obsessive Viewer Facebook group also, yes. Which we should have talked about that. We've been doing group screenings. We're going to do another one of those at some point, but we gotta
make it through Shocktober, and then Tiny's getting married next month. In a undisclosed location, an undisclosed date. Not with an undisclosed date. He knows who he's getting married to, but I'm not sure she knows who she's getting married to. Right. I'm so glad neither of them listen to this. But those are on hold. But definitely join the Obsessive Viewer Facebook group. They do group screenings of films. The first one done was Dark Tower. Yeah, that was just essentially Matt and I. The second one was It a few weeks ago, which was a little bit better attended. Oh yeah, and then we're going to go ahead and continue to try to record Obsessive Viewer episodes. Oh yeah, for the movie we just saw directly after the screening. So with your amazing podcasting equipment, which I'm still super jealous about. Which was purchased because I was jealous of the equipment that we are currently using. This is a completely unintentional game of one-upsmanship. Right. Completely unintentional. It's like, I really like this, but I also need something that's portable, and this is just the most economical solution. Right. Oh, that's great. Okay, so and also keep your eyes open probably for the upcoming HoosierTrekkiesPod.com podcast, where Matt is going to start reviewing Star Trek, including the upcoming Star Trek Discovery, and the Hoosier Horror Anthology Pod, which is going to be his look at horror anthology series through the eyes of a first-time viewer, because this man is a podcast junkie. I am. And I would be willing to bet within the next 2 years, at least one of those is going to be true.
Jesus.
Okay, before we go, folks, dead serious. I drop him a message today going, so you want to go ahead and start doing a podcast about Star Trek Discovery? And he's like, sure. And I'm like, no, you idiot.
To be fair,
I'm kidding.
To be fair, I legitimately thought that you meant, hey, let's do a recording of Star Trek Discovery, an episode of like Obsessive Viewer reviewing just the season, a one-off. I did not know what I was committing to, which is funny because I actually have a note on Evernote that's of the note's called obsessiveviewer.com presents, and it's different ideas for different spin-off podcasts. And Star Trek was one of them, but
well, because there was a long period there where you were watching the original episodes and Next Gen, and it sounded like you're getting ready to start doing some of that. So
yeah, and I did that because I wanted to do a written review series, and I started that, and then I launched 2 more podcasts. I got a cat. I started working in a call center. So,
which takes up all your spare time. There's no downtime at a call center.
There is not as much downtime in a call center as there is as a security guard.
Your employers might listen to my podcast. There's no downtime at a call center.
Right. True. There is no downtime in a call center.
There's definitely no downtime when you're the training coordinator, which is my title this week. So, but on that note, Matt, once again, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast. Thank you so much for allowing me to be on your podcasts on occasion. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
It's a lot of fun. I will definitely see you at Shocktober in a few weeks.
Nice.
Hope to see all of the rest of you there. Remember, comment on this blog post with your favorite horror film. No showgirls, that joke's been done. Make sure you have contact information available for me. And we will be doing a drawing on the Thursday, the 5th, right?
Yes.
We'll be using the And the Winner Is plugin on the 5th to pull the winner of 2 tickets. I'll be waiting for you at the venue.
Yep.
At Shocktober in Irvington. So...
Awesome.
And you're just like way too giddy about this.
It's a very nice surprise because I didn't know that you were planning on that. That's
we're going to
awesome.
workshop this right here.
Very cool. I love it. Oh yeah. I'm also very full of caffeine at the moment.
I am not, which is why we are now going to cut off.
Nice.
I am going to drive because then I need to get this on a flash drive, and then I'm going to drive home. So, folks, I will see you all on the outro. And Matt, once again, thank you very much.
Thank you. It's my pleasure, and it's always a blast to talk to you. Thank you so much.
I'd like to thank everybody for listening to this episode of the Indiana Geeking Podcast. You can find the blog post for this episode, as well as information like Hoosier Convention listings, past podcast episodes, and more at indianageeking.com. If you like what I'm doing, there are ways you can help. First, you can make sure you subscribe through Apple Podcasts, Google Music, Stitcher, or whatever your preferred podcatcher is. Also, if your method allows it, I'd love it if you left me a rating and review. Good or bad, it lets me know how I'm doing. If you'd like to help financially, you can go check out the Support Geeking in Indiana link posted at the side of the blog, where you can learn about how to support geeking by shopping through Amazon, making a one-time donation, making a monthly donation through Patreon, or even buying Indiana Geeking merchandise through the shop link. Before I go, I'd like to give a huge thanks to my $5 and above patrons for supporting the blog and podcast. One of their perks is a shout out on the cast, and I'm more than happy to give love to Becca, Claire, Kayla, Mal, Michael, Spencer, Tommy, and Tyler for their support. Last but not least, I want to give a huge thanks to the local band's 5-year mission and the Shakeups for the music used in this episode. You can find track info on the blog post and find out more about the bands at 5yearmission.net and theshakeups.net accordingly. Thank you all for listening and for your support. I'll see you next time, and always remember, live long and prosper, may the force be with you, and as always, be excellent to each other.
3 podcasts taking its toll.